Hello guys, my name is John Michael Reyes, and this is the last video or the last vlog that I'm doing because this is the summary of the CCNA 1 or the chapter 1 to 11 and the introduction to networks. Then as you can see, we've traveled or learned so much from the chapter 1 to chapter 11, and in order to do in order to go to CCNA 2, you need to verify and others and specifically understand what are the components of the CCNA 1 introduction to the networks. So this course introduced the architectures, structures, function, components, models of the internet and other computer networks. As you can see, it introduces us the architecture, functions, and the other stuff. It is somewhat it introduces the end devices, intermediary devices, and the media devices, and with each other, it helps for us to learn what are the real networks and the function of it, and the principle of structure of IP addressing, and the fundamentals of Ethernet concepts, media, and operation are introduced, provide the foundation for the curriculum. And as you can see, the principle and the structure of IP addressing is clearly, what I can say is clearly taught or learned because it, we've already performed the packet tracer exams and the other stuff. Then the concepts are there in order for us to learn, and operation are introduced to provide the foundation for the curriculum. Then by the end of the course, the participant will be able to build simple LANs, perform basic configurations for routers and switches, and implement IP addressing scheme. And as you can see, in some activities there are some simple LANs we already built and configured just like that, and the requirements are being applied. Then for the routers and the switches, and in addressing scheme we learned the VLSN, and in subnet the IPv4, the IPv6, and the other stuff. But the more advanced one are still not learned because it is part of the CCNA 2, I think. Then the only performed one is the basic configuration in a from the user exec to the global exec mode or global configuration mode. Then understand and describe the device and services used to support communication in data network and the internet. And as you can see, the one that supports and the other stuff used are the end devices, intermediary devices, and the media devices. The end devices are the ones that somewhat the users use, or just like me, I'm using my computer are my end devices, and then the end user. And in order to connect, you need a router or switch. And as you can see, as I have a router in here, then the router is in here, then it provides the router are somewhat the intermediary devices, and the intermediary devices are the ones that support the communication, because without them you can connect to the internet or the internet service provider. I'm sorry for that, I have a cold. And the last part is the media connection. The media connections are somewhat the WAN, LAN, and wireless. It somewhat applies. The LAN is the local area network, or it is just used for small networks, or just like in computer shops and other stuff. Then the MAN is the metropolitan area network, where it is MAN is larger than LAN, but it's smaller than WAN or wide area network. It is somewhat used in the ACT or other stuff. Then the WAN is, or the wide area network is, it has a wide geographical range and already used in some world, in our world. And in order to connect to other places, you need WAN or wide area networks. Then understand and describe the role of protocol layers in data networks. There are such many protocols in data, role of layers in data networks, such as somewhat the DNS. The DNS are the domain name system. There are the ones that change the name into an IP address or other stuff. The DHCP, or the domain dynamic host configuration protocol. There are the ones that assign the IP when you activated them. Then the other one is after that is domain name system, DHCP, and POP or post office protocol. Or then there are still so many protocols that you can learn and that are showed in the chapters. POP, then EIGRP, then what are the others? FTP or the file transfer protocol, and TFTP or trivial file transfer protocol, the TCP and the UDP. And somewhat the TCP is more on reliable or best effort. Then the UDP are somewhat good in fast delivery, because FTP is somewhat in segmented. Then the UDP is, it somewhat applies or considered a lost or momentarily disrupt, and UDP is used in live streaming and IP phones. Then the other stuff, and the TCP is used in webs and somewhat HTTPs. Then the other protocols there are still many protocols, the BOOTP and other stuff. Then understand and describe the importance of addressing and naming schemes at various layers of data networks in IPv4 and IPv6 environment. These are one of the crucial part when you are making a small network, because if you have many hosts but your IPv6 or the IP block is not good for the host, or it cannot accommodate all the host will be discarded and cannot be used because the IP block is not sufficient for it. It is where we use the VLSM or the variable subnet mask. The variable subnet mask is somewhat borrowing data or computing the IP addresses in order to use the host, in order to use in a host or in a network. Then in variable subnet mask, it is somewhat a borrowing of bits and determining how many hosts or how many hosts do you need, and on how you can get the network address and the other stuff. Then design, calculate, and apply subnet mask and addresses to fulfill given requirements in IPv4 and IPv6 networks. It is somewhat connected to this one is connected to chapter 8, the subnetting a network, because as you can see, design, calculate, and apply subnet mask and IP addresses to fulfill given requirements. In some packet tracer activities, there are some activities that it has a MAC table or addressing table, but the addressing table is not complete, and you are the one who needs to compute what is the IP address of that table, or that end devices or intermediary devices. Then with that, the thing is, it shapes you in order to have a fast computation skills and IP, in order to get the IP addressing and subnet mask in your network and other stuff. Then sorry for that. Then explain fundamentals Ethernet's concepts such as media services and operations. The medias are somewhat the the ones that being used, and the services are the ones that provides. Then the operation are the ones that execute, I think. Then build a simple Ethernet network using routers and switches. This is the last activity, or every activity that we have in every chapter. We always build a simple Ethernet network using routers and switches. It is somewhat a network topology that we always build. Then we need to configure, and we should check the requirements, or what are the requirements that are we need to do in that switches and other stuff. And mostly the routers, switches are the one that are crucial part when you configure, because one mistake in that is can ruin your network topology, or it cannot provide some other details and other information, just somewhat like an IP. If you don't have a default gateway or something else, then the other stuff. Then after that is use Cisco command line interface CLI commands to perform basic routers and switch configurations. Utilize common network utilities to verify small network operation and analyze data traffic. In somewhat, we already use when we are configuring in a packet tracer, we always use the CLI, or the command line interface, in order to configure a switch or a router. And in a command line interface, in the first one, if you go in a command line interface, you will be thrown in the user exec mode, or the first one. It has limited what it has a limited commands, and the next is the privilege exec mode. It somewhat, when you type enable then press enter, you will be thrown in go into the user exec mode. With the symbol for the user exec mode is somewhat the hashtag. When you see a hashtag in your switch, or switch hashtag, you are already in a privilege exec mode. Then after that is the global configuration mode. The global configuration mode is somewhat, you always go in order to configure a switch or a router when you need to give them IP addresses, passwords, going to a console line, or VTY lines, or aux line, or interface in other interfaces. You somewhat giving them a banner, or enabling a secret for the user exec mode, the other stuff. Then utilize common network utilities to verify small network operation and analyze data traffic. Somewhat, it is how after every PKA, the requirement is to ping each other in each other for verification, because when you ping the other PC and it doesn't send or receive a packet, or the command prompt, it is shown that request timeout, it means that the verification is not correct, and your topologies has something wrong, and somewhat your configuration are incorrect. So that's why we need to utilize common network utilities to verify small network operation and and analyze data traffic. Then networks and the internet, these are somewhat my realization about the CCNA 1 summary. And network and internet have changed the way we communicate, learn, work, and even play. As you can see, network is growing and somewhat it always adapt changes because change is somewhat inevitable and you can escape it. And as I've known, change is the constant thing in the world. Then because as you can see, when we communicate, we have some computers and devices, we have our cell phones, we have tablets, TVs, and other stuff. Then the way we learn from medieval age to modern age. In the medieval age, you should go into libraries and other stuff, get books and read. But today in the modern world, you just need to sit, then connect to the internet and search for what you want to learn. Then boom, you can learn it. Then and how we work is somewhat you in the IT industry or other stuff, you can work with your house because when you have a computer and you have the application in order to do what your boss said, you can work with in your house and even have a nice salary because you already worked hard for it. Then and even we play in old age, we played just somewhat go with our friends, go in the street and play with them. But now you can play with each other even you are not in touch with each other or somewhat impersonal. You'll just sit and go with your computer, play Dota, somewhat the example is Dota, and you can have 5v5 with each other. Even your opponents are from other country, example in China or Japan or in other stuff. Then networks come in all sizes. They can range from simple network consisting of two computers to network connecting millions of devices. Simply, the best one is the peer-to-peer or the two computers to network. Then the world, as you can see, in our world, we are connecting millions of devices because we are all connected. Even you didn't realize it, we are all connected. No matter what happens, we are all connected because if you have a cell phone, if you have other devices or any devices, you can connect to each other and other people can connect you or track you or even do something bad for you because of that. Then the internet is the largest network in the existence. In fact, the term internet means a network of networks. The internet provides the services that enable us to connect and communicate with our families, friends, and networks and interests. As you can see, as I've said earlier, internet has changed the way we communicate. Then, because as you can see, I can communicate here, and the one that I'm communicating is from Canada and other stuff. Then the internet is simply network of network because the internet will with large I think that is the network of network or somewhat the connectivity with each other. And the internet with small I is simply the www or the World Wide Web with lots of informations and lots of learning if you do it the right way. Then services that enable us to connect and the other stuff. Then the network infrastructure is the platform that supports the network. It provides the stable and reliable channel over which communication can occur. It is made up of network components, cloud and devices, intermediary devices, and network media. As you can see, as I said earlier, there are always end devices, intermediary devices, and network media. Because without those three, you can connect with each other. That three is always in common, or what we can see in our daily life. Then it's somewhat, as you can see in here in this sentence, it provides a stable and reliable channel over communication can occur. Somewhat, you have a phone call and it uses the UDP because it allows a connection loss, and it will be momentarily disrupt, or you can hear each other, but when the packet is delivered and it will be okay again. Then the other one is the TCP, when you are sending a Gmail, and it is the when you are sending a platform or a file, it always needs a best effort or guaranteed delivery. That's why when the sender doesn't send or have an error sending the file, they can present it and other stuff. Then network must be reliable. This means the network must be fault tolerant, scalable, provide quality of service, and share security of information. And resources on the network. Network security is an integral part of computer networking, regardless of whether the network is limited to a home environment with a single connection to the internet, or as large as a corporation with thousands of users. No single solution can protect the network from variety of threats that exist. For this reason, security should be implemented in multiple layers using more than one security solutions. Then in that statement, as you can see, the one that I mean for this reason, security should be implemented in multiple layers using more than one security solutions. Then in every networks, or in somewhat just like in a company, you should have a reliable network, because when you have an error, it must be fault tolerant. What do you mean by what fault tolerant? It somewhat should have another way in order to not interrupt the other things that are being done. Then scalable is somewhat how can you expand quickly or place other stuff. Then provide quality of service. As well as quality of service is somewhat having the guaranteed 100% services, and ensure security, or somewhat the having a massive security means you have a hackers can be allowed, and you have a strong network. Then network infrastructure can vary greatly in terms of size, numbers of users, and number and types of services that are supported. The network infrastructure must grow and adjust to support the way the network is used. The routing and switching platform is the foundation of any network infrastructure. The network infrastructure can vary greatly in terms of size, because you can have a small network, you can have a medium network, and you can have a large network. It is your own purpose or dedication, or if what network or how many size will you use, the number of users, because if it is a company, it can have a large number of users and other stuff, and number and types of services, some of the internet service protocol if you need that. Then the network infrastructure must grow and adjust, because we all know that every time or because every time we need to adjust and other stuff, because as I've said earlier, the only constant thing here on earth is change. So we must change and grow, adjust to support the way the network is used. Then the routing and switch platform is the foundation of any network infrastructure. So we need, as I've said, we need to learn what's the routing and switching platform that are used, because it is one of the foundation of every infrastructure that we are gonna take and other stuff. And that's all. Thank you for listening, and that is the last vlog for me.